Welcome back to Writers, Readers, and the Stories We Love. We are very happy to be here with you again for this February with a brand new special guest and lots more writing conversation. I'm here with my co-host, Daien Sanchez. You can say hi.
Hi.
And we are very happy to have with us our special guest, Tom Coash. And today we will be talking about all things playwriting. You can check out Tom's full bio in the description for this video. But Tom is an award-winning playwright, produced internationally, and faculty at the Stonecoast Creative Writing Program, which Daien and I have special ties to, both being graduates of said program. And I've had the pleasure of working with Tom in workshops and various things as well. So we're really looking forward to having the chance to just kind of talk about playwriting and stories and the things we've enjoyed. But before we jump into that, Tom actually brought some of his work to share with us. So I will turn things over to him to read, and then we'll jump into the conversation from there. Take it away, Tom.
Great. Thank you for having me, you two. This is fun. It's a great thing to do on a Saturday afternoon. So I'm going to do something kind of crazy today, reading-wise, and then I'm going to read something absolutely brand new. Still working on it, and I'm doing teaching a workshop on character development down at the San Miguel Writers Conference in March. So I've been thinking a lot about character development and monologues are a great tool to use to develop character, I've always found. And in fact, when I start writing a play, I always have a hard time getting started until I can catch the voice of one of the characters. And I find that writing monologues does that for me. I can just get into one character's head and fiddle around until I find that voice and then take off from there. So I find it a really valuable tool. And plus they're hot right now, with everything going on to Zoom. We got monologues coming out of our ears every which way. So in this one in particular, I thought to myself, I like writing monologues to start with. I love them. They're just fun. But also I thought, well, I need to write something that can play on Zoom, and so monologues are obviously easier than a 4 or 5 person play. And so I thought, so I started working on this one. And it's called The Flat Meat Society. And it features a kind of a feisty character named Dee. So imagine that I am a middle-aged woman living in West Virginia, and we're here in the busy, bubbling kitchen of my very lived-in trailer home, and I've got several pans and pots on the stove. Willie Nelson's On the Road Again is playing in the background, and I'm wearing an apron that reads, The Flat Meat Society, the real deal. Dogs bark outside, and a knock is heard at the door. Entrez-vous, welcome-vous. I'm learning French, big secret. Thanks for coming all the way out, especially during a damn plague. Sorry about the dogs. Quiet! They're my exes. Damn, I'm excited. NPR right here in my little old Winnebago. Picture me on NPR. I told Junebug, my cousin, I was going to be on national radio, and she flat out called me a liar. Said, Dee, you better slow down those meds you're taking. Dee continues preparing various dishes as she talks. Don't worry about the mask. Had the darn thing in July. Laid out in a hospital for a week, alone. Thank God for Medicaid, even if they do say it's calming. That's when I got my revelation, my brainwave, the Flat Meat Society, the real deal. That's trademarked. What do they say? Winners never quit and quitters never stop whining. Well, I was tired of whining. I said, Dee, when you get up out of this bed, you got to turn the mental corner. Expand your horizons. Bitter ain't better. You ever been to Los Angeles? Everybody's crazy out there, right? I'm thinking about going. Who knows? Maybe. Anyway, here. Something new for the cook-off. Go on, try it, taste. Taste, it's fantastic. Nothing weird, I promise. Yep, that's it. Unbelievable, right? Possum grits. Oh, sorry, wrong tube? Fresh this morning. Lucky find, doing my UPS deliveries. Yeah, threw in some serrano peppers, Vermont cheddar, Parmesan, and head in the woods. That's mushrooms. Grifola frondosa, that's Latin. Growed them right down the hill, big clump on a stump by the turnoff. More? Too spicy? No worries. I got something even better cooking. I got plans for you. The Flat Meat Society, seasonality, regionality, environmentality, goût de terre, and plain old luck. That's what's important when it comes to flat meats. Necro-pastoral. Yes, sir, got that West VA goût de terre. That's French. Taste of the earth, or road in this case, Route 16 near the river, goût de tarmac. Used to be the Roadkill Festival cook-off was the end-all, be-all of my existence, you know, all that mattered. I won that cook-off 6 years in a row, 6 straight, till last year. My streak was broken by cheating hucksters pulling a fast one, flying in flash-frozen Canadian geese from Nova Scotia. We're supposed to be cooking roadkill. When's the last time you heard of anybody sideswiped a Canadian goose? Maybe if they was flying a 747. Authentic. People drive hundreds of miles to this festival to try something different, authentic. Webster's at the library says, roadkill is an animal or animals that have been struck and killed by motor vehicles on highways. Struck and killed by motor vehicles. It's not the Harvest Hunting Festival, not the damn ship it in from Siberia on UPS Festival. I cook what I scavenge. No trapping, no hunting, the real deal. I don't run them over neither on purpose, neither like some. Okay, all right, D. Okay, slow it down. Deep breath. Ooh, woo. Medicinal purposes only. Blood pressure. Bitter ain't better. I was even the Roadkill Festival queen my first year in my hot tamale days. How I met my ex, Bambi. She was one of my Roadkill royal ladies, cutest thing in Pocahontas County. We were together 7-something years. Oh, where's my manners? Try a taste? Homemade, natural herbs. Put the bees back in your hive. No? Anyway, the whole thing's changed at cook-off. Started out years ago as clean country fun, you know? Now it's all about the city coffers, spreadsheets, cash flow, catering to PC buzzbuster tourists don't want to offend their delicate little Subaru sensibilities. Humans been eating roadkill since the first ox cart flattened a feral side of bacon in ancient Egypt. It's natural. Waste not, want not. People are happy eating an apple fell out of a tree, so what's the difference? Roadkill, or flat meat, I'm calling it, is 100% free of all the antibiotics, hormones, and growth drugs those factory farms stuff into store-bought meat. Perfect for the pandemic. No human hands have touched this meat till I picked it up. Which would you rather have in your mouth? Corpses of animals that spent their whole lives knee-deep in a crap-filled feedlot, belching climate-destroying poison gas, throats cut in a COVID-ridden slaughterhouse? Or something been running free, eating wild greens, fresh berries, drinking out of clear mountain streams? I just had the unfortunate misfortune to get caught in some trucker's headlights. Elk, venison, boar, grouse, wild turkey. You just taste my wild turkey jerky. For all you paleo listeners, are you kidding me? Perfect. Survivalists, listen to the news. Stock up. Winter is coming. Hell, winter is here. Animal rights activists and knowing foodies are on board and on the road with flat meat. Ethical, organic, ecological, finger licking good. No GMO in this POT. It's not just a choice in the kitchen, it's a lifestyle. Roadkill sounds distasteful, right? Gross. Your mind can't help flashing on one of God's little miracles mangled and bloated on a median strip. It's sad. So I came up with flat meat. More appetizing, right? Like a sizzling flat iron steak. Take away some of the stigmata. You familiar with that 5-second rule when food's dropped on the floor? Well, we got the 5-hour rule. Or, you know, in rigor mortis, then you put the 5-hour movie. You want it, ideally, you still want it moving, put the poor thing out of its misery. Or in rigor mortis, then you know it's fresh. Stiff as a board, thank the Lord. If vultures is on it, cry and drive on by. Anything I won't eat? Pekingese. There's an old country song goes, don't ask me how I know. Of course, some people just don't take to it. Fred, my ex-husband, my biggest mistake of my life, I served him ferret once, said it smelled like a dirty clothes hamper. I said he smelled like a dirty clothes hamper, which he did, and that was that. Bambi was never actually really keen either. Oh, she liked the glamour. But last spring, after she had a head-on with a white-tailed doe in the fog over to Taylor Mountain, She just couldn't stomach it anymore. Can't blame her. It'll mess you up hitting a deer. Beautiful creatures, 120, 130 pounds of solid muscle and bone and pure innocence. Crush your fender and your heart at the same time. She said she was standing there shaking, crying, tears running down, telling the highway patrol, and that bastard can't keep a straight face, looking at her license, laughing, because a woman named Bambi creamed a deer. So I said, we got to go get that deer. Perfect for the cook-off, right? She said, you're crazy. She said she was done with roadkill. Well, I was a little crazy then, post-imposter geese cooking my goose fiasco, bitter as bad vinegar, obsessed with winning my title back. Waste not, want not, right? Prime venison. I lugged it home, gutted it, was hanging it out back. She hopped in the Chevy, screamed out of here, spitting gravel all the way. Went to Vegas, went vegan, and became one of them runaway models. I'm proud of her. I am. To get away from here and do something, not end up roadkill yourself, laying in a hospital bed, run over by life. Actually, I'm thinking I'll retire after this year's cook-off. Bambi said I had lost myself, lost my way. Maybe she was right. Lost my mind, lost my health, lost the love in my life. Laying in that hospital, tubes running out of my nose, I wasn't thinking about possum paninis or toad a la mode. I was thinking about how she was gone from our kitchen, from our bed, even leaving her dogs behind. Nope, bitter ain't better. Hell, I don't even care if I win this year. I just want to share my passion, go out with a good taste in my mouth. Besides, I'm just getting too dang busy. Had a video go YouTube viral, courtesy of my 11-year-old hacker niece. Now we got a website, working on podcasts, t-shirts, aprons, and big reveal here, drum roll. I got a cookbook coming out and maybe a live TV show, all sponsored by Michelin, the tire company. May we. They're not just tires. They also got that food star thing, 3 stars, 5 stars. It's natural, right? Tires, flat meat. I said to the Frenchies, okay, mon frère, écoutez. Maybe your company isn't doing too good in this present world economic crisis. People aren't driving much, don't want to go to the store, hard time putting food on the table, hard times, period. You need something new. Expand your horizons. Think of your tires as more than just a way to hold cars up. Think of your tire as a metaphor for the circle of life, the cosmic wheel, life, death, and the journey. The right tires can get you over a hump and get you a free meal. I cooked them a few of my past winters, southern fried squirrel with coriander and a squirt of chili sauce, smidgen of pigeon toast toppers, shake and bake snake. But what really got them? My pièce de resistance. Taste. Go on, expand your horizons. That's right. Is that flat awesome or what? Bambi's revenge. Yep, same deer. Been keeping a haunch in the freezer. Seared venison with hot, spicy huckleberry dressing, sides of winter squash. Get it? Squash. And creamed corn. More? Told you. You being here reminds me of Bambi. Sharing everything. Granny used to say, kitchens are for Sharon and Sharon's Karen. Maybe I forgot that. I named this for Bambi, so maybe she'll hear about it. See, I'm not crazy, that I'm doing okay. 2020 didn't kill me. That I've been thinking about her, missing her. And well, they want me to go to Los Angeles for the TV. That's near Vegas, right? Junebug told me to follow my heart, not my hate. I could take the dogs with me. You know what the Michelin company motto is? A better way forward. Maybe she'll see I found my way again. A better way, right? The stove timer goes off. Ding, 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 ding. Hot damn, the frog nibbles are ready. The end.
That was so good.
Thank you.
You are
It was fun to write, I'll tell you that.
And you're a great reader. It's so like animated, and I was in there. I was seeing that play out. So
thank you.
That was great.
Yeah, I had a reading of it with it actually a really good actress the other day who also coaches dialect, and so she was just nailing everything, and it was fun to listen to. So,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you, for all you writers out there, it's a great exercise reading your stuff out loud. Because as I was reading it, even just now, I was thinking, oh, I got to
You were
change that.
editing,
Oh,
you were
that
editing.
that doesn't stand right. What is that about? So
Yeah,
it's a good exercise.
that's good. I mean, I hate reading my stuff out loud. Stonecoast made me do it way too many times. I still don't like it, but yeah, you read it and you're like editing as you go, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh my god, this
yeah,
was perfect 10 minutes ago. Why is it?
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm so torn because I see the benefit of reading out loud because every time I do it with my own stuff, I catch things. But yeah,
Mhm.
I am not a fan of doing it on my own.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm not either. Even amongst all of us professors there at Stonecoast, we all dread that getting up and reading.
Do
It's
you? So that never goes away. It's not just us like
no. I mean, I think that
beginners.
you can always tell actors because they want to be on stage doing stuff, right? And the rest of us are normal people, not so much.
We're in the behind the scenes, behind the camera and all that.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
the great thing
this
about being a
is
playwright or director is that you can be drinking during the performance too. So that
always a plus. um I really want to go back to like your beginnings. How did you get into play? Like, what made you playwright, and how did you get into that scene? Which we know all of that's so hard to get into. So
that's interesting, really, and in that I never really did any theater at all. I mean, I went to theater, but I didn't do any theater until my last quarter of a long and checkered undergraduate career. And I went to a play with my girlfriend and at the time, and and it was awful. I mean, it was really awful. It just stunk. And I said I could write a better play than that. And she said, "Why? Well, why don't you then?" Right? And so I thought, okay, all right. So I took a playwriting course and wrote a play, and it got done. And it was fun to hang out with all these other people and and do the play. And then I got lucky really from there because I was, as I say, it was my last quarter in school. And I didn't know anything about theater. So I asked this guy, director, who was a visiting director, what I should do. And he said, well, why don't you get an internship at a theater? And I said, doing what? And he said, well, doing literary management, which basically are the people at theaters that do new plays. They're the ones that you submit your work to. And who read the plays and keep up with all the new plays and playwrights around the country and find the plays to present to their artistic directors to decide what they're going to do. And so I thought, oh, that'd be cool, And so plus literary managers also sit in on rehearsals, and they're kind of the representative of the playwright at the theater in many ways, and so it's really fun actually. And I said, well, where should I do that? And he said, well, I just came from this theater in Kentucky called Actors Theater of Louisville. And I thought to myself, I was in California, and I thought, they have theaters in Kentucky? This is what I knew, right? And I knew nothing about theater. So I applied, and at that time I was working. I grew up in Bakersfield, California, which is a big oil capital. And so I was working out in an oil rig. So I was working on an offshore rig in Canada, and that summer, and I'm working on the rig, and the loudspeaker comes down and says, "Coash, you got a call." Pre-cell phone, so it's like radio phone calls out to the rig. Nobody calls you. I thought, oh my God, my parents have been killed in an accident or something. It was that kind of thing. And I go, and lo and behold, it was Actors Theater wanting to interview me for this position. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And so we had an interview, and I got the internship, and I got there, and in about a weekend, I realized I am in probably I think at that time it was the best new play theater in the world. And I knew nothing, and everybody, like Kathy Bates was in the production that I was working on at my first one, right? For instance.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was fantastic. And I said to my boss, I said, why did you hire me? I don't know anything. And she said, well, last year we had 2 people with MFAs and they wouldn't do any shit work. And I thought to myself, I'm talking to a guy standing on an oil rig. Surely he doesn't mind getting his hands dirty, and getting some work done. So there you go. So I say to everybody, apply for everything. If I would have known anything about theater, I never would have applied there because I thought I wouldn't have had a prayer. But instead, I was just what they were looking for in this weird way. So, and then I worked there for a few years, and then went back and got my MFA in playwriting, and then did a lot of other, started a couple theater companies and did a lot of other theater stuff, and still working at it. So, have I written a play better than that really horrible one? I don't know, but I've been trying.
And I'm curious, were your plays being performed before you got your MFA? Like what made you, that's always a question people ask, why did you get your MFA? Why did you feel the need to do that?
It is a good question. And again, I just got totally lucky. I've been a lucky person. So in that I was working at Actors Theater, which was this great theater, and they actually had an in-house playwriting contest there for 10-minute plays. They were really the ones who invented the whole 10-minute play thing. And they're really the first ones to make doing standalone monologues popular on stage. And I was there right when they were first starting to do all that. And they would have this in-house contest, and they encouraged everybody to write a short 10-minute play for the apprentice actors to work on. So you would turn them in anonymously to the lit office, and then they'd choose the plays that the actors were going to do. And you could win money, which means a lot to an intern. And it was cool. I mean, and even the custodians and everybody was writing plays and turning them in. I mean, it was that kind of fun place.
Yeah.
And so I had my short play that I had written, as the undergraduate, and I thought, I've got my masterpiece here. It's going to get done. I'm going to become famous. I'm going to win the money, and so I turned it in, but anonymously, right? And so I'm sitting there in the office with everybody else while we're looking through these plays, and everybody said, "Oh, well, this one's horrible," kind of thing. And did I say that was my play? No, I did not. And I immediately went home and wrote another one and turned that one in. And did that get done? No, that one didn't get done either. But it was a long learning experience. So I was writing, and I did have a few short plays done. But I worked there for 3 years, and then wanted to go back to California, and I did. Mostly I just wanted to. There's an old saying, I think Dorothy Parker said it. I love having written, but how does it go? Something like, I hate writing, but I love having written. It's something to that effect, and that was me. I hated writing, but I wanted to be a writer, and drink wine in Paris and smoke cigarettes and stuff. So.
Yeah. Who doesn't want to do that?
I know. So I went back to California and started bartending and being a writer, which of course really meant I was just drinking a lot and not doing much else. And so, but while I was Actors Theater, I worked on a play with this man and his wife. He was a director. She had written it. It turned out that he was running the playwriting program at the University of California, Davis, where I was. And I went over to see him. I said, "Hey, Ted, can I just sit in on one of your classes to learn something?" And he said, "Why don't you just be in the MFA program?" And so I did. And so it was very strange that way, but it worked out really well. So, yeah. And I found it hugely valuable. I learned a lot. I got my real first full-length productions, which is a huge learning experience. Being in rehearsals is a huge learning experience for a writer. And I made all these connections, and I still do stuff with people I was in grad school all the time. So I found it a really valuable thing.
Yeah. I mean, it always is once you go through the program. I mean, I know at Stonecoast, I learned a lot more than I thought I would going in.
Yeah.
I wouldn't take it back at all. I would go again. So
that happens a lot at Stonecoast. Yeah. Nobody wants to leave.
Oh yeah. And because you leave, and then you're out in the real world, and you're like, well, now I have to do something and get published. And you're like, but while you're there, it's just, you keep working on your stuff, and the mentors are great, and it's just, I don't know, it's a really nice environment to be in.
Yeah, and it's forever giving you deadlines which you have to meet, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Those are definitely useful to have.
They are.
We were talking about this with Josh the other day. I think that I have not been as productive as I was during Stonecoast because of those deadlines. So
that's true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. It's so interesting that the more people I talk to who have established careers in various forms of writing, like and exactly like you were saying, so much it just seems to come down to that persistence, like applying for everything and just continuing to try. I mean, like you said, just applying for things that you think you have no chance of getting, and then lo and behold, like that's exactly what they want. And
Yeah,
so many writers talk about that. Like they just keep putting it out there, and
Mhm.
eventually they gain that traction, and they're learning the whole
yeah,
while.
yeah. You got to apply for everything. You never know. You never know. So and I usually I send out a lot of stuff every year, and and get rejected continuously. That's just part of the game, right? And but you get stuff. You're never going to get anything done if you don't send it out somewhere. So, and plus, I find it a great way to procrastinate because I still feel like I'm actually working, but I'm not sitting at my desk writing. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So switching a little bit to more of a craft side of things, what does your process look like when you're creating a play? Like from kind of initial conception through to the final product, and does it look different for short plays versus full length?
Yeah, yeah. Well, every writer is different, I think, in how they do things, and so I always think whatever works for you, do it. Like I was talking to a former Stonecoaster last night, Monica, who we have this a small group that you guys are welcome to join, or we get together once a month and just read new plays. We just read them ourselves, as things. And Monica always writes a new one. She's got this great imagination. But she says I write it on my cell phone because that way I don't feel like I'm really writing. So I can just lay here on my couch and just do it, and I don't feel any pressure. I thought,
Okay.
wow, that's kind of crazy.
Smart.
Yeah, but whatever works. So it depends. What I try to set myself deadlines, and so that I can do things. And or if you have a commission, that's like a deadline. Or if it all depends on what's going on. But I with short plays, I just have a whole list of ideas that I kind of want to work on, and I just kind of churn them around in my brain until something kind of clicks. Like the roadkill play I had in my mind for a long time, and it wasn't really till I thought about I need something for Zoom, and I'll do a monologue, and it just seemed that the roadkill thing kind of worked for the time that we're in, kind of business. So I just sat down and started working on it, and that was fun. It was just, I mean, most of my stuff's kind of more serious, but so it was fun to write something different, But generally, working on a full length thing, I try not to think that I'm sitting down to write a full length play because it's just too intimidating. You know what I mean? And so I just sort of start writing on an idea, and if it keeps expanding, then it keeps expanding. The other side of that is if I have a commission to do something, then the pressure's on you. It's great to get a commission, but then you got to write the darn thing, and which is crazy. And usually it comes with some theme, like I had a commission once to write a play about spousal abuse as a human rights violation, and like, where do you start? What I mean, it's like, what? How am I going to start that? It was crazy. So, but I usually I think about it a lot, which my wife thinks is not working, but it is, right? Writers think a lot.
Mhm.
I often have to send myself to someplace different. I can't really go to a lot of times I'll sit at a coffee house or a bar or something and work for a long time, but we can't really do that now. So I go downstairs and work and sit at the table down there. So I don't know, just to put yourself somewhere different. And when I started out, one of the questions you sent me was, what would you wish you had known when you were starting out?
Yeah.
And what I wish I had really understood was that my writing wasn't precious. When I was young, I thought, oh my God, this is all perfect. It's perfect. I can't possibly change a word of this. Why doesn't anybody get it? Kind of thing. And now I think, thank God I'm going to be able to rewrite this because I can save my ass, and fix things, So rewriting to me is, I know for most people they hate it, but I really actually like rewriting a lot. So I guess that's kind of my process. I just keep there's not much difference between a short one and a long one, except for the time I have to sit at my desk. And even long ones, it's sort of like chapters in a novel. You have scenes that you go from scene to scene on. But now the great thing, the different thing about playwriting than writing a novel or something else, although I think you could still do it. So when I finish a play, I read it to myself. I give it to my wife because she's gotten to be a good reader over the years. And then I send it to a couple of my other friends that I was in grad school with. We trade stuff off. And then I try to immediately, as fast as I can, get a group of friends over. It's hard right now. Buy a couple bottles of wine, get people over, and then read it. And I don't read it myself. I just want to listen. And they always want to give you lots of advice and feedback, which usually isn't very helpful. But you just smile and nod your head. But what's really important is for you to hear it, out loud. And I think that's probably true for all genres. You can, like somebody was telling me just the other day that she likes to have the Jenny Mahoney, who's teaching with me at Stonecoast now. She says she likes to have the computer read it back to her out loud to her. She says it's great for editing, but then she really gets to hear it. So do that. Then I rewrite, of course. Then I start sending things out, usually way too early. I should have several more rewrites. But sooner or later, I start getting offers to do the theater. It's always you get offers to do readings because everybody wants to do new plays, but it's a big risk. You've got to cost money. You got to, to do a production. It's a big, theaters that do new plays, there's not very many. And they do how many? 3 or 4 a year. So it's a huge risk for them, to take on. And so in place of that, lots of people want to help you develop the play by doing readings, which does help. But sometimes you get into a reading like trap where you get, I had one play that I had about 100 readings before I got a production, which was driving me crazy. So generally I'll get offers to do readings. So like I just had a reading of this play about a week and a half ago, which was very helpful with a real actor, which was great to listen to. And then I continue sending them out and I continue rewriting them and hopefully eventually I get a production. And then if I can go and be in the rehearsals, that's phenomenal. It's the best part of being a playwright is the rehearsals. Is you're just in a room with all these brilliant people who are helping you make your thing better, and they really bring it to life and flesh it out. So that's a really fun part. And then hopefully a production and then rewriting more. And you rewrite all the way through rehearsals and you rewrite after the first production and after the second production because you can learn a lot from listening to the audience. And all that kind of thing. So there's an old saying with plays is that they're never really finished, they're just abandoned. So, and I think that's pretty true. So I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. Yeah, I'm always just curious because people have such vastly different approaches to writing. I think exactly like you said, find what works for you. But I'm always curious to hear people talk about what they found that has worked for them because I've heard people who write things completely out of order and stitch them together later, who write like huge amounts of material and then pick out the pieces that work, and then other people who start smaller and build it up.
Uh-huh. Well, I tend to put everything in when I'm going along. Even if it's you get to a point and you say, well, should she do this or should she do that? Or and I just throw it all in there, knowing that I'm going to come back for rewrites. Right. And so, because I think if you just stop and start saying, what should she, and going back and forth, then you get trapped that way, So I always try to blow through a first draft as fast as I can, knowing that I'm coming back for a rewrite, and then that's, to me, that's the painful part. There's the first draft. So, and then it's all, pretty good stuff. It's easier for me, at least. So going and rewriting.
And I'm going to pause real brief just because I realized I forgot to mention it at the beginning. But for anyone tuning in, if you have comments or questions or thoughts or anything like that, I am watching the chat on Facebook. So feel free to drop in either just related to what we're talking about in general, or if you have questions for Tom, we'll get to as many of those as possible as we go. So feel free. But kind of going off of what you were saying a little bit on the actors part of it. We sent you, I know, these questions in advance. I'm going to put a couple of them together. So can you just talk about, in general, since playwriting is so kind of communal in a way that fiction is not always, you've got actors, directors, producers, and I know you've also done co-writing on at least one piece um, for the musical side of things. Like, can you talk about just kind of that experience of getting so many different people and perspectives?
Sure,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah. People ask me that all the time. Isn't it hard to collaborate? Isn't it hard to hand your thing off to somebody else? Because like a play is never really done till somebody else does it,
Yeah.
right? And then it's never exactly what you're picturing. So, like my wife's a painter, and we were having drinks one time and just talking about how how painters and writers are these lonely people who sit in their studios or garrets or whatever, and she said, but then you get to go, when you finish the play, you get to go hang out with all these great people. And I said, yeah, it's kind of like if you had an idea for a painting and you told all your friends at a party and then they painted it for you. And that's about as close as it ever comes to how you really imagined it being, and so you have to be able to do that, go with that, and I really love that. I love that when it gets done at your theater, Josh, it's one entity, and when it gets done at Diane's theater, it's completely different, even though the words are exactly the same, because you've got different actors, different designers, different directors. There's a whole different thing going on, and so hopefully your play stands up to all those different things. You know what I mean? And that's good, and I love, as I say, being with the actors. And so, like, one of my full-length plays has two women in it. One's an African American and one's an Egyptian woman, and I'm obviously neither one of those things. And so it was great to actually finally get into live rehearsals with people who were those things, and like at one point, one of the actors said, "Tom, a Black woman would never say that." And I say, "Well, great. What would you say?" And she would put it in there. We would put it in there if it worked. But you could discuss all these things. They ask you all these questions about what they feel works or what doesn't work. They're great research. There's a lot of people researching what you're doing, and so it's just really phenomenal. It's kind of like being in grad school, where you get all this feedback from all these people who really, if it's a good grad school, who are really on your team, and in a theater, they all are on your team because it's their asses on the line too, right? So everybody wants things to go well. And I find that the higher you sort of rise up in the theater world, the nicer people are. Because if you're not fun to work with, if you're not good to work with, you don't work, and if you can't work with other people. And so, unlike, I think, the film and TV world, which is a whole different kind of ball game, I think. But I love that collaboration, and it's fun.
Yeah, I know the chances I've had to hand off scripts to actors, like I've gotten very lucky in the theater I have done to just work with some incredible people, and almost every time, like, they're finding things in there that either, like, I left subtle hoping people would pick up on, or stuff like interpretations I hadn't even thought about. And yeah,
Mhm.
just the way they bring these things to life and really inhabit the things that for me were just kind of words on a page. It's
Mhm.
so much fun to see every time.
Yeah. It's fun. And like the musical is a weird thing because I'm completely non-musical, and I had this, and I never had. I was sort of a musical scoffer in a way. and,
I
and
love musicals.
Yes. And but I had this one monologue, short monologue, and about a woman tightrope walker, and it had gotten done quite a bit, and it was done by this group in South Africa, and the woman wrote me and she said, "Have you ever thought of making this into a musical?" And I thought, no. and but then I started thinking about it, and I called my friend who is a musical producer, and I said, do you think this would be a good musical? And two, then if I want to try to do that, how do I do it, right?
Mhm.
And so he said, well, let me think about that. And he called me back in about an hour, and he said, well, of course, it's perfect for a musical. And two, here's the guy you're going to work with. I called him, and he's ready to go. And I thought, oh, perfect, that should work. So we met and had a long conversation over coffee in New York, and we both liked each other, and and he went home and he said, basically, Tom, I'm going to steal all your best lines and turn them into songs, right? And so he sent me a song, and and I try really hard not to picture my characters in my mind to too much of a degree, because they're always different. You can, from theater to theater and actor to actor, and really your play is just a skeleton for actors to flesh out. But I never thought of this character as a tango, and I thought, huh. And I listened and brought my wife in, and we listened, and then we sent back, I know, some just ridiculously stupid feedback and questions like, can it be more yearning? Can it have more yearning? Things like that. And he said, yeah, oh yeah, I see what you mean. And bang, the next day, here's a new version of the song, right? And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. I like this. But I had a couple other thoughts, and I sent him an email, and he said, okay, cool. Bang, the next day, here's another version of the song, right? And it was it turned out to be a great song. And and we kind of went for there. So in this little short play, there's three songs, and with dialogue in between, and it still worked out really well, actually. So in fact, it's going to be on a podcast. I can't remember. I think it's by a group called The First Draft, who features new short musicals. So I think that's going to be next month. So it's being recorded even now, even as we speak, I hope. So but that's gotten done 3 or 4 times by the people in South Africa first, which was great. And it was really, for me, a whole new world, this whole musical world, And now we've been working on a full length that just kind of stalled during the pandemic, like a lot of things, but maybe we'll get back to that. We'll see how it goes. But we're also working on a bunch of short musicals. And my collaborator is a real go-getter, and he's put together a new company to sort of like a Netflix kind of thing, where there's some free content, and then if you want to go deeper, then you can pay for content. We're just working it all out, but we're doing short musicals and he calls them musies. So which will be sort of the come-ons, the free stuff to get people into the new full-length musical kind of stuff. So that's been really exciting and fun.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, I mean, Josh and I love The Greatest Showman, the movie, and it's made me want to write a musical. But again, I'm not musically inclined per se. I'm not a songwriter, so I'm interested to hear. I know you had this play already written and it was turned into a musical, but for the ones you're working on now, is it the same process where you write?
No, it's so weird. It's so weird. and then it's much easier to have it already written and go to.
Yeah.
And I should just say straight out that one thing I've discovered is that there are tons of musical composers and songwriters, and very few people writing the book, as they call it. And so all the composers and songwriters are looking for good writers who have a good story to tell. And so, which was why it was so easy for my friend to find this guy who was really great, immediately. So then we decided, okay, my partner and I, we decided, all right, well, let's work on a full length play. And I had this he basically just read everything that I'd ever written, I think, and said, oh, I really like this. Maybe we'll just work on. Oh, no, I like this, and then we sort of went through the whole thing, and we started working. I lived in Egypt for several years, teaching there, my wife and I, and so a lot of the stuff I've written is set in Egypt or has to do with sort of Middle Eastern themes, and he really liked this sort of 30-minute one act I'd written about, that was set on top of the Great Pyramid, which already sounds like a musical, doesn't it?
It does.
So he said, oh, let's work on this. And so I had some parts written and some ideas, but not the whole thing. Okay. So we luckily for me, he runs a big musical theater program and foundation, and so we got to go to a retreat basically for musical writers at the Goodspeed Theater in Connecticut, which is fabulous musical theater, and and be there for a month working on the new musical, right? And so they have these really nice sort of condos or duplexes, I guess you call them. But I was in a room upstairs and he was downstairs, and he had all his musical stuff, and I could hear him down there playing. And every once in a while, the music would stop, and I would get a text and say, "How's it going?" So as soon as I would hear the music stop, I'd often go get in the shower and say, or something like that, So.
That's funny.
But it was hard because he was particularly in that situation, because I would write a scene. And as I told you, I'm all about rewriting. So I would write a scene, brand new, fresh scene that I would normally never show to anybody, and hand it to him. And he'd immediately start writing a song. I go, no, John, wait, I don't even know if that character is going to be in this play. But and I didn't want him to invest a lot of time in something that I really didn't know what was going on yet. And so that really got to be kind of an issue. And we had to say, okay, I'm just going to go away and write the whole thing, and then come back, and then we'll put it together. So, but I know most musical people do it all together, at the same time like that. So, but I think it's all, how, again, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
And luckily he had a couple other projects he was working on, so it wasn't like he got really mad at me or something, or at least he pretended not to.
That's interesting. I'm like, one day I want to try to write a musical, whether it's like theater or film or something. But
you should. Yeah. In fact, tomorrow there's this place called the Playwright Center in Minneapolis. It's a really great playwriting support place, and they have a musical writing workshop tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
That you could go to for $15 online from 3:30 to 6 for for beginners.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, send it over.
And because I think I'm going to do it. It sounds like fun to me. I don't know anything about it. So yeah. And it was weird being also at that at the Goodspeed for that retreat. There was like, I don't know, maybe 5-6 writing teams there all at the same time, right? And we would all work on our stuff, and then people would sort of gather in the evening for a drink or and maybe read play a new song and I was the only one in that place who couldn't jump up on the table and belt out a tune or play 16 instruments, or what I mean, or something like that. So it was very humbling for me, but fun.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So try it. That's my advice.
Yeah, that's the thing. Just getting sitting down and actually doing it. I think it's just the whole musical part is a little scary, at least until I heard what you said, that you just wrote it out completely and then did the music. Because I'm I can hear it in my head, but I can't write notes and I can't write lyrics. So
right.
That's always what
What was weird too, when we're doing the full length thing, is that now I started writing it in my mind, thinking, oh, we'll put a song here about this, or we'll put a song there. And he said, no, stop that. Don't do that. Okay. He goes, you just write the play and I'll pick out where the song is going to go, because it kind of whatever. Yeah. He says it's the lines or the moments that speak to him that he wants to write the song about, not what I'm trying to figure out. So that was something we had to work out as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because then it's not entirely how you see it. It's how he sees it too. It's that collaboration. You just have to be able to be open to. Yeah,
you really do. And and luckily he's a total pro and I'm not so much, but I've at least done it for a while enough to that we don't take offense at what the other person says. Mm-hmm. It's things are happening, so that's good.
Yeah.
It's so interesting you say that about the song placement. I was at a panel I think over the weekend. They were talking about illustrated novels. And the illustrators were saying the same thing. They were like, don't tell me where to put a picture. Give me the manuscript and let me decide where the illustrations best fit.
Right.
And it's the whole thing of learning, I think, to let go and trust your collaborators that they also know what they're doing.
Yeah, and what they've got to be inspired too. They're not, to order, right? So they look for, as he said to me right off the bat, I'm going to steal all your best lines and make them into songs.
Yeah, and then so often you get those things that like they come up with something that you never would have thought of on your own, and like the sum total is the best of however many people are involved.
Totally. Always they come up with great stuff. So yeah. And plus, it was just a blast to be suddenly thrust into this completely new world for me, and that was really fun.
So. Okay, so kind of going off of that, like we've musicals, and you talked about like your play on top of a pyramid. How much room is there for kind of experimentation that you found in playwriting specifically? Because I know, like in fiction, in poetry, like there are different kind of boundaries that you can push in each form. What has that been like for you as you've worked on ongoing pieces?
Well, I feel like there's zero boundaries in theater. So, I mean, it's just because you can put anything in there. I can put a song and a dance in there. I can put a helicopter in there. I can put, you can put anything in there. And so in some ways that intimidates people, I think, that there's so many possibilities, but give me the gist of your question again.
Just what has experimenting been like for you in terms of
great,
yeah. What you can do.
So and I'm pretty straightforward writer. I guess I'm not a particularly experimental type writer, although I've tried to do that a few times, and it's fun to be able just to let loose with whatever you feel like doing, but there's really no boundaries, and there's theaters. The more experimental you get, the harder it's going to be to get your play done. But there are lots of theaters who are there just for that kind of experimentation, And then the nice thing about theater, as in the other genres nowadays, is that you can always produce your own, And that's what I did when I got out of grad school. We moved back to Charlottesville, Virginia, because I met some theater people there. And I started a theater company, and boy, that was a learning experience. And I told everybody I was a director, even though I had never directed anything, and just faked it and learned how to direct. So and so that was fun. But like I say, I'm pretty straightforward, and I guess going back to my process, I'm a big believer in setting. And I think a good play is a play that takes the audience somewhere they haven't been, emotionally, intellectually, and physically, or hopefully all three of those things. And if you can start the play set in an interesting spot right off the bat, I think that's you're a third of the way there already. You've already got some interest going, and so that's generally the way I start. And then I just kind of do whatever I feel like doing, and if it seems, because I think I'm kind of a pretty regular kind of a person. My wife and I often say we're not rich and famous because we're too normal. If we could just push ourselves out these other sides of these limits. But does theater itself put limits on you? Not really. So, I mean, you can pretty much do whatever you want. So,
Well, I know I've heard you talk about the site-specific theater that you had done, which was such a fascinating concept the first time I heard about it.
Yeah, and I love that. And, and again, it was just sort of lucky in a way. But when we moved to Charlottesville, I went to this a conference in Richmond with a couple of my playwright friends, and we met this guy. We had readings of our plays, and we met this artistic director there who was all gung-ho about our work. And he said, "Oh yeah, I want to talk to you guys about doing some productions, and meet me at this bar at 6 o'clock." And of course he never showed up, right? And so we got drunk, and they just said, "We're going to start our own theater company," And the next morning, we all kind of looked at each other and go, "Are we really going to do that?" "Yeah, let's do it." "Well, how are we going to? We don't have a theater." Kind of thing. And so, and I had kind of really, the head of my program in grad school was really into experimental theater. And I particularly always found site-specific theater. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's SITE, and it just means doing the play in the actual real locale of wherever it's set. So like if it's set in a bar, we would do it in a bar. If it's set in a park, we do it in a park, if, so on and so forth. And so I said to my friends, I go, well, let's just start a theater company and we'll do site specific work because it won't cost us anything. Right. And that seemed easy to do. And the way we did it is that there was 3 of us. So we took turns at first. I would run the whole production and they would help me. And then it would be one of their turns to run the whole production and we would all help them, you know what I mean? And turn around like that. And we generally picked sites and then we actually commissioned writers. We had 0 money, right? But we would say, okay, we're going to set this play in, what's a good one we did? So for instance, we did a great production in a sort of a high-end interior design furniture store. And it was really great. So we decided we wanted to do it there. And so sort of the gist of it was that we moved the audience around from bedroom display to bedroom display, and doing a bunch of short plays that were all set in bedrooms. And so then we just put out a call for bedroom plays and commissioned a few people to write bedroom plays. And it turned out really well. It was really fun. And so that's kind of the way that we operated. And that theater company is still, right now they're sort of on a hiatus because of the pandemic, but that theater company is still operating. And the reason, I think, is because it doesn't cost anything in between, doing a production. We didn't have to pay. Most new theaters have to spend all their time raising money to pay rent, right? And so we didn't really cost us anything, and it was a lot of fun. And we got a whole different kind of audience. We did it really cheaply, and you're just this far away from the actors, so you really, really want them to succeed, so it was just a blast. And so we still do that I was just back there 3 years ago. We did a revival of a bunch of older pieces. That was really fun. But yeah, I like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it makes it easy to do.
Yeah, definitely. The hour has flown by and we're coming up on the end of our time. So I want to wrap things up. We always kind of end with the same question, and I'm going to modify it slightly here to 2 parts. If someone doesn't have a whole lot of experience with playwriting and they want to learn more, who is like one playwright that you would recommend that they go out and read?
Outside of yourself, of course.
That's right, exactly. Oh boy, there's so many good ones out there. I think there's a bunch. It just sort of depends on what style of play that you kind of want to write, so like there's a really great playwright if you're more interested in comedy named Michael Frayn. He's a British playwright and who's really brilliant, and or Tom Stoppard, who you've probably heard of also. Or when I first started writing, I was really fascinated by Sam Shepard, who we all know as an actor, but he was really a rather brilliant experimental playwright as well, and won a huge number of awards doing it. And so I was really interested in experimental theater, even but that taught me I wasn't cut out to be an experimental theater writer. I don't know. But what I would really do is you can just go to any bookstore or online and just get collections of short plays, because then you get a bunch of different styles and you kind of get an idea. It's great to start. Don't start out writing a full-length play. Start out writing a short play, and there's a lot more opportunity to get them produced, and then they're fun and they're easier. So there's bunches of those out there, and so that's what I would really recommend, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's excellent.
There's a good book by a friend of mine named Gary Garrison, who he wrote 2 versions of it. One is called The Perfect 10, and then he wrote a second one called The More Perfect 10, about how to write a 10-minute play. And it's really basic, but it tells you what writing a play is all about and how to go about it. And it has 2 or 3 good plays in there for you to read as examples. And so that's really a good place to start.
Yeah, I think I read A More Perfect 10. I might even have it on my shelf over here.
I probably recommended it to you long ago.
I think it was probably you, yeah. Okay, and so then stepping back from playwriting in general, but just in terms of books, movies, TV show, theater, really anything, just what's something you've been enjoying lately that you've either watched or read?
Good question. Actually, reading-wise, I've been reading plays or books by Edward Abbey, I think that's how you say it, who is the guy who wrote the Monkey Wrench Gang about eco terrorists, and he's very nature writer. Because I'm doing some research for another thing I'm working on, so I started reading his stuff again, and he's really good. And I read live. I've always wanted to write a kid's book, so I'm kind of in the process of starting that. So I've been reading a ton of young adult books, which I love. And the great thing at Stonecoast, when I mentor students, I always ask them what they're reading and what their favorite book, what they're kind of doing. And so I get a lot of ideas that way. And so I just finished one called, it's the Malazan series. Is that how you say it? Do you know that one? It's a speculative fiction, sort of space opera kind of thing that's pretty good. I read the first one, I liked it. So, yeah, but watching wise, I'm addicted to recently to the Great British Baking Show, and I think because finally I just had so much bad news over the last year that I just wanted to watch something where people were nice to each other and gracious, and it wasn't about winning $500,000 or you're kicked off the island or anything like that. But it was just these nice people baking things, and it kind of, these patisseries sort of flowed, washed over you, and and it was really fun. And then I've been watching a Japanese series called The Midnight Diner. Do you know that one by any chance? It's very, very strange, kind of slice of life thing. There were this diner that opens at midnight, and the people who would come in Tokyo, and the people who would come into a diner after midnight kind of each have their own little story, and it's wrapped around food that's being cooked there, and it's very bizarre, and but I really like it, so it's interesting.
Daien, you want to make any recommendations this time around?
WandaVision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. It is, I mean, besides the fact that it's like re-entering the MCU since like Endgame or Far From Home with Spider-Man, it is so good. It is so good. Like, I want to be a fly on the wall in that writer's room because you can't guess what's coming next. And it's one of those that it's like you're at the edge of your seat and they have to wait a whole week to find out what's happening. It's really good. Mm-hmm. I recommend it.
And in terms of really just embracing something weird and daring, because Tom, are you familiar with the show at all? Have you seen the trailers?
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it, but now I will.
Yeah. So I mean, it started as like a black and white sitcom in the first episode, and it has aged up by decades over the course of it. So in terms of like experimental work, it's done some really fascinating things with storytelling, with this kind of unfolding mystery behind the scenes of it all. So
cool.
Yeah, the first couple episodes, I was like, I'm not really sure what I'm watching, but I was like, it's Marvel, so I have no doubt that there's some like genius plan for it, and like, yeah, there is. So
cool.
Yeah. And I'll pitch real quick. I've probably mentioned in these videos before, but I'm kind of diving into horror literature more in the past year. And so I have an advanced copy of Stephen Graham Jones's My Heart is a Chainsaw, which might not be for everybody right now because it is fairly dark and heavy. So you have to be in the mood for that. But it's kind of like a love letter to slasher movies and films, but also like really complex characters. He's, I would say, one of the best horror writers working today, based on some other stuff of his I've read and now this one. So I'm definitely enjoying going through that one, if that's up your alley, but it's some good stuff. All right, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, this was great. I kind of wish we do them longer because I just kind of want to keep talking. This is really fun.
Yeah, if we could adjourn to the bar like in the old days, right?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, the hour always goes by super fast, but no, this has been great. So Tom, thank you for joining us today and for this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone who tuned in, either live or anyone who comes back to this later. As always, it's up on Facebook, it's up on YouTube. Go back and watch any of the old episodes as well if you missed those. So many great guests. I think Daien and I are just lucky. We know so many awesome people, and they just keep agreeing to join us and do this. So it's so much fun just to keep hosting guests and having these conversations. But yeah, so tune in next month for more of this. We're going to keep it going for as long as we can. And thanks for watching.